Okay. You all set, Janet? Good morning, everybody. Before we start the formal board meeting, we'll have a swearing in of a new board member, and I'll let Janet Burney, our general counsel, take that over.
Good morning. Thank you, President Kumar. I'm here this morning to administer the oath in a public setting to our newest board member, Chanel Smith-Wiggum. And this is the oath of office for her membership on the Board of Trustees of the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Chanel Smith-Wiggum,
Do hereby solemnly affirm
do hereby solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will honestly,
and that I will honestly,
faithfully,
faithfully,
and impartially
and impartially
perform the duties
perform the duties
required of me
required of me
as a member of the Board of
as
Trustees
a member of the Board of Trustees
of the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority.
of the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority.
Great. Wonderful. Welcome to the Board of Trustees of
Thank you.
RTA. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your service.
All right, we're going to call to order the committee of the whole session. Roll call, please.
Mayor Kumar,
Here.
Ms. Pachetti,
Here.
Ms. Elder, Mayor Gallo,
Here.
Mr. Love,
Here.
Ms. McPherson, Mr. Sleesman,
Here.
Mayor Weiss,
Here.
Ms. Wiggum.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, approval of the November 18th, 2025 minutes. If there are no edits, I would ask for a motion in a second.
Motion, Pachetti.
Second, Elder.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Those are approved. Item number 3, we have reappointment of the 8 members of the Community Advisory Committee, and I think presenting is Natoya Walker. There you go. I was looking in the wrong spot. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair and Board, and to our newest member of the Board, welcome. I am here today to present on the reappointment of 8 members to the Community Advisory Committee. The purpose of the Community Advisory Committee is to support public transit in Northeast Ohio and to assist the authority in fulfilling its mission and vision through supporting the authority's provisions of service to individuals with disabilities and advocating for and educating the community regarding the authority's interests. There are presently 11 members of the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee. 8 members' terms will expire on December 31st, 2025. Each of them are seeking reappointment. 11 individuals from diverse, where's this fly coming from? Excuse me. 11 individuals from diverse communities within, representing diverse communities in Cuyahoga County. The terms for the CAC members are 2 years. The initial terms were staggered at 1 and 2 year intervals. The members include Brooklyn Burmeiser. Brooklyn presently works as an architectural design for the DLR Group. Brooklyn is a member of the American Institute of Architects and AIA Cleveland. Brooklyn is a self-appointed public transit advocate who utilizes fixed route services daily. Brian Givens. Brian has served years of experience representing labor force, senior management of public media, nonprofit, and government agencies. Brian currently is a member of Clevelanders for Public Transit and Northern Ohioans for budget legislation. Brian utilizes fixed route services 4 to 5 times a week. Alicia Howerton is currently the manager of external and government relations at the Cleveland Site Center. Alicia is also a board member of the Cuyahoga County Advisory Committee for Persons with Disabilities and is co-chair of CCA-CPD Subcommittee for Transportation. Alicia is a frequent paratransit rider. Charles Kinnick is a member It is an employee of the City of Cleveland. Charles is a member of the Old Brooklyn CDC and the Franklin Clinton Block Club. Charles utilizes fixed route and rail services 2 to 3 times per week. Lou. Lou is a member of various community organizations, including Northern Ohioans for Budget Legislation, the Adams Board, the Board of Cuyahoga County Action Committee, and Clevelanders for Public Transit. Lou utilizes fixed route and rail services daily. Paul Meisner. Paul presently works as a financial controller for Real Life Real Estate Group, HSK Management. Paul is a member of Clevelanders for Public Transit and is the precinct election officer for the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. Paul utilizes fixed route and rail services 2 to 3 times a week. Jonathan Seek's profession is in managing the mobile field workforce with the responsibility of route planning, capacity requirements, communication, and efficiency. Jonathan currently serves on the board of directors for Neighborhood Family Practice and is a member of the South of Lorraine Block Club. Jonathan utilizes fixed route and rail services daily. Cole Ware. Cole serves as an associate for Results for America. Cole is a member of the Cleveland Heights Transportation and Environmental Sustainability Committee and co-founder of the Coventry Neighborhood Group. Cole utilizes fixed route and rail services 3 to 5 times a month. The recommendation is staff requests that the Committee of the Whole recommend to the Board of Trustees the reappointment of Brooklyn Burmeiser, Brian Givens, Alicia Howerton, Charles Kinnick, Lou, Paul Meisner, Jonathan Seek, and Cole Ware as members of the Community Advisory Committee.
Thank you for that presentation and update. This has been a great group. I know that has worked very well with management, provided very meaningful feedback. I think it's great that they all want to continue their service to RTA. Are there any questions from the rest of the board?
If I could, can you just remind us how long the terms are and when, others who might be interested in applying for the advisory council, just to put this in context?
Certainly, with this resolution and these reappointments, should it be approved, it will be for 2 full years. So it will run through December 2027.
And then if there are others in the public, I'm just wondering, it is a community advisory council, so you want to be sure you're cycling in new members. How are you guys handling that?
What we'll do after this is approved, if it's approved by this board, is a 1 year out from the term's completion, we'll begin to socialize it out. A reason why we think it is so critically important for the reappointments this time of these 8 and the 4 that were reappointed a few months ago, 3 of whom are in the room, is because we repurposed this committee. And in repurposing this committee, it was a lot of legwork, if you will, working in tandem. Don Tarker worked very closely with us and the leadership team represented by Dr. Sopko. And so in order for us to get to a level of continuity, consistency, clarity of purpose, we felt it was important for the continuity of it at this moment. I would like to announce that there are 3 members in the room today. If you all 3 could stand. Dr. Sopko is chair. Lou is one of the persons that we're asking for reappointment, as is Brian Givens. Oh, sure.
If I might make a comment, ma'am, to my understanding, there's no fixed number of people on this committee. So although there's 11 now, there could be more. And if other qualified people apply, they could be onboarded, in the interim. So there's no actual limit. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? If not, would there be a motion to move this to the full board meeting for a vote?
So moved, McPherson.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
move that forward to the next board meeting for the reappointments. Thank you so much. All right, next item we have items 4 through 11, actually, are code updates. So I think Anna will be up here for a bit. And just to highlight, most, not all of these are updates as the authority receives guidance from the Federal Transit Administration, our policies have to be in alignment with their current directives. So a lot of these are based on that. So as a backdrop, I'll just let you go through.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, members of the board, and Ms. Birdsong Terry. My name is Anna Lavix. I'm the Senior Counsel for Contracts, Real Estate, and Administrative Law. As a matter of background, the codified rules and regulations of the authority, which we commonly refer to as the Code Book, was beginning to be codified in 1989. We are reviewing it and updating it to bring the policies in line with our current operations, and as it states, it is subject to review and revision every 3 years. The presentation today is essentially 3 parts. The first is updates to our financial policies. There are some substantive changes that we're proposing. And if there are substantive questions about that, Raj will be on hand to assist with answering. We are making some changes to the paratransit policy, not at all substantive. These are entirely a cleanup of a very old policy. So again, here, this is just to conform to our current practices. And then the third part is to bring our code book into compliance with executive orders that began in 2025 with the Trump administration. Those executive orders were required to be compliant within 2025, and so we're updating our materials as we're required to do. Pertaining to Part 1 of the changes, Chapter 460, Financial Policies, one of the changes that we're making is that we are designating a 15-day ending balance for the Revenue Stabilization Fund. There is already a requirement to maintain a 30-day balance in the general fund. Another change that we're making into Chapter 460 is that we are creating a sub-account within the reserve fund dedicated to transit-oriented development. And the last substantive change is that we are removing a requirement that was in there to evaluate the supplemental pension fund every 2 years. Also related to the financial policies, Chapter 842 is being revised. We are removing the operating ratio from that chapter since it was duplicative with 460 and instead simply making a referral to Chapter 460. We're trying to consolidate substantive information within one chapter so that they don't become out of compliance with one another. We're also removing a provision for special services that RTA no longer provides. That was shuttle service going back to 1995 that the FTA prohibited RTA from doing in approximately 2007, called charter service. Now moving on to our paratransit chapters. Chapter 1013 describes service standards. It contains some paratransit language. Again, we're removing it from 1013 and we're putting it all within 1086, which is the paratransit chapter. So again, that's just a referral change within the code book. Chapter 1086, paratransit. It's a very old chapter written as an aspirational statement that RTA will become compliant and will have ADA compliant facilities. We are and have been for a very long time compliant. The policy was written prior to the ADA. So we've changed the chapter to provide a history of explaining why we're providing paratransit service to individuals that were born before December 31, 1931. And we're also updating language to refer to trips within 3/4 mile of a fixed route. We're not changing the service. It just was written in a way that looked like we required a residency requirement. We don't. We're just making the policy clear and reflective of both the regulation and in our current service. You will also see when the reso comes before you that there are a lot of red lines, again, because we're removing the aspirational language that we will become compliant and simply restating it as a history that we have become compliant. We are compliant. So again, that's removing the language that predates our bus fleet becoming accessible. The third set of changes that we're bringing forward this month relate to the executive orders so that we are in compliance with what the U.S. Department of Transportation and FTA will require of us when they do the triennial review next year. The first is that we are removing a provision within the bylaws that requires contracts to submit affirmative action plans. That is being removed because an executive order issued by President Trump says that we can no longer require those of contractors. Within the Code Book, Chapter 220, similarly, we are removing a responsibility from the board's Organizational Services and Performance Monitoring Committee to review affirmative action. Within Chapters 620 and 642, we're making changes. We're revising the language in 642 that says right now that equal employment, that we will review that equal employment policy of contractors, and instead we're just going to say that we will review RTA's own workforce for equal employment opportunity. And then in 620.04, we are repealing the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. Our recommendation is that we're requesting that the Committee of the Whole recommend these provisions to the Board of Trustees for approval. Are there any questions?
Could you go back to the slide about 460? Thanks. And then the next.
Go back to pension?
No, and the one after that? Yeah, and then the one after, no, here. So it's not in the description of the edits to 460, and 460.02 is referenced here, but in our red line, there's also a change to 460.02C1. So is the red line correct of what we're advancing, or is the description here what we're advancing that does not include the description of the red line?
So I'm not certain I'm going to answer you the way in that you're answering. So if I don't answer what you're asking, let me know. But
Right.
within 842, we refer to the operating ratio.
Right.
We don't want to restate the operating ratio, so we
Right.
simply want to refer the reader of that chapter to Chapter 460.
Right. And in our red line that we have in front of us, at least, there's a change to 460.02.
Yes.
Okay, that's not described in any of this or covered.
I think it's striving towards an operating rate.
So, right.
Right.
25%. I think that's maybe a Raj question.
And I have two questions. One is literally just linguistic. Our goal is to strive to that operating ratio?
Correct.
That would seem to me to mean nothing.
So, Anna, if I may step in, Mr. Sleesman, these are discussions that we've previously had in various settings. So the board policy, as previously stated, was that your operating ratio must be 25% or greater. What that means is your own source revenue divided by the total operating expenses should be 25% or greater. We have not been close to that. I think in some years we had a 10-year history that had been provided. We've come close on a few occasions. The highest I remember that I seem to have was 20.1% in 2016. Since then, two things have happened. Ridership, et cetera, is significantly lower. And two, the operating budget continues to grow with normal inflation, tariffs, salary increases, and what have you. So the issue was, and in that 25% was not even attainable. We did not want to give the impression that we were somehow lowering the bar for ourselves because we presented data not only on a 10-year basis, but also a comparison with other transit authorities as to what they are doing with their passenger revenues, and we at our 10% at the end of 2025, between 10 to 11%, are in the upper echelon of other transit authorities. So to say that we are going to have a goal of 25% would mean that our passenger fares plus own source revenue, which is a smaller component of the operating revenues, would need to be based on the 2026 operating expenses of $342.5 million. What we are saying is the operating ratio should be $85.6 million. and a large component of that number would be passenger fares. Passenger fares currently are in the 30 million range.
Right. So I have thoughts about that, including the fact that I believe in one of the settings we discussed this, I had requested a breakdown by mode. And I can tell you right now that the operating ratio for the health line last year was 22%, so really close to 25%. And the health line was running at 56% in 2019, and it's 73% in 2017. So I do have thoughts about the 25 and whether or not it's appropriate, because we seem to have things in the health line, whether it's the dedicated lane, whether it's different fare recovery, whether it's more spaced out stops, that seem to positively infect that ratio. And at the same time, I don't understand what a goal to strive towards an operating ratio of 25% means, because it would seem to me that a goal of 25% would mean you're striving towards it. It doesn't say it must be that, it says the goal is that. And so if we're not having the goal of 25%, we should either have a different goal or eliminate this. I just don't understand what a goal of striving towards is attempting to say.
So if I can add a little bit of context. So I think there have been, and I would also invite Mayor Kumar, if you'd like to weigh in on this as well. We've had different conversations throughout, and any board member, of course. We had any conversations about the idea of the 25%. I think the idea that you mentioned, Trustee Sleesman, makes sense. We either have a goal or we have a different one. The idea, if we were to reduce the goal, the board would have to agree to that, of course, if we were to adjust it. Our combined staff recommendation is to lower that goal. I think when you see strive, you see the idea that we are telling the board we feel pretty confidently we're not able to meet the goal that's been set for quite a long time. And Raj, historically, how long has that goal been on the books? Do you know historically how long? In excess of 10 years, maybe 15, somewhere about.
I think it goes back into early 2000s.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That has been the goal for a long
Nearly
time.
30 years.
Nearly 30. Okay, so if we're somewhere between, let's say, 20 and 30 very confidently. We as a team do not believe we can hit the 25%.
Then let's change the goal.
So that has been recommended in different settings to the board. The idea to have it changed, we would definitely be behind the idea of adjusting that if that's the desire of the board. My recommendation would be, if that's what we're going toward, that the staff come back with a recommendation before the next board meeting to be able to give a definitive number. The idea to have strive was to be able to work within the idea that we didn't want to give the impression of lowering the goal, but we're not able to hit that 25%. I think we have a pretty good number in our minds already, but if that's okay with the board today, we will come back to you between time with a reduced estimate of what we think that is achievable, and then be able to adjust that before we come back to the next meeting. We've gone through this several times.
I would prefer that. It would seem to me that having a goal is to strive for something. So I don't understand the change of this language. In terms of the number of 25, I don't know what it should be. We can have that conversation, but I would like us to also be involved in that conversation and not just a number told to us. The last time this came up, like I said, I asked for a breakdown by mode, specifically because bus and bus rapid transit operate differently, and even bus rapid transit in our system has operated differently over time, and we can see what operating differences make differences in that operational rate and that operating ratio to then maybe actually be able to determine a number. Whether it's the same number the board agrees upon that management has in mind may very well be. We haven't had that conversation though. And I don't understand, like, that is a different conversation than what is in this change right here, which doesn't seem to make sense to me. And was, by the way, and I'm a little bit annoyed that it wasn't pointed out that there was a change here in this. None of this description included the fact that there is a change to 46002. That is just here now. But also just linguistically, it doesn't seem to me to actually do anything, because a goal is to strive for something, and this is saying the goal is to strive towards it.
If I could, I think it's a fair point, and I appreciate you bringing it up. So I just, to clarify, is the recommendation not to make changes to this this particular segment right now and then move forward with the commitment of a conversation later where we can revisit
That would seem to me to be better.
And I'm fine with that, to have a goal of a new percentage, because as you said, I think that's your goal. It's not a shall, it's a desired
Right.
outcome. So I think we can just leave the other language in there in the 25% and have that discussion as we're moving this forward. And if we get it done before the next board meeting, great, but we could get it done in the near future either way and have that discussion of management's recommendation. We can look at it in committee and come to agreement on that and move that forward. And I think that's probably more realistic given the current economic circumstances, given what happened in COVID and things like that, that we adjust that to reality. Quite honestly, I think, as you said, Raj, that's probably been an unrealistic goal for a number of years when you and I chatted about it. So I think it's a good conversation to have and set something there that's realistic for the staff to achieve and to work towards. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
I had a question on 46007. Jeff, if you're done, any other comments? Okay. I wanted to talk about the supplemental pension fund. There's some changes to language there that is being recommended every 2 years about including appropriate actuarial studies shall be made of that fund. Can you just further elaborate on the reason for those edits?
Absolutely, Mayor Kumar. Thank you for that question. The supplemental pension, historically, the supplemental pension plan arose from going back to 1975 with the merger with CTS. These were CTS employees for which a pension plan had been set up. And what the requirement was that at least every 2 years we would get an actuarial study done to make sure that we had enough funds to take care of our pension requirements to those CTS employees. Over the years, the number of pensioners has reduced, and our internal analyses that indicate that with the financial commitments that are currently outstanding, our reserves are more than adequate to meet those needs. So the reference to having an actuarial study performed on a 2-day, that's being removed. But the funding is not an issue. We have enough funds to take care of the responsibilities we have.
And this fund supported CTS retirees 100%?
That is correct.
It's not any current employees here?
Most of the current employees are in the state.
I mean, I guess that plan was a defined benefit plan?
That it was.
Okay, so you needed an actuarial study for that, knowing that the number of retirees has dropped significantly and you've got funding there. The cost of an actuarial process to go through and do that, you're looking at simple math with the number of retirees being much smaller, knowing that that balance is going to cover it.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, and I guess my only thought might be for management is the authority to determine the amounts required. Crossed off some of this. The authority will determine the amounts required to meet expected obligations of the pension fund, which could include actuarial studies. I don't think you're going to need it, but it is a defined benefit plan. I think it's fine. I know where you're headed, and I think it makes sense with the number of retirees, but if you needed that, it would be helpful to the reader to know if you thought you needed that. That would be one tool you could use, but you wouldn't be required to use it. That would be my only thought on it.
We'll add that language, although we are pretty confident based on the internal analysis.
Correct. But I just want to leave it in there since it is a defined benefit plan, because otherwise, maybe for the next meeting, if we move this forward, you could just give us the actual number of retirees. I think
there are about 6 or 7 retirees.
Then we probably don't need that edit. That's what I was looking for.
And the annual expense for those commitments is about $6,000.
Yeah, okay, that's good. I'll withdraw. Other questions from board on other areas?
Yeah, I have a question, Trustee Elder. I'm just wondering, Anna, if you can provide a little bit more context and color for our decision to remove the diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. I know you made just a very simple statement as to the reason why, but I think it'd be helpful for the public and for us to understand, what went into the decision to do that without getting into any, privileged conversations and things like that. And I'm also curious as to whether or not we know how other public agencies in the area are also handling that as well.
Thank you, and good morning again. When President Trump took office, over the first several months, and it really didn't even take that long, there was, let's describe it as a flurry of executive orders, a number of which were targeting affirmative action and the words diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and practices. So we started taking a look at what we have on as our policies and our practices and what do other organizations have. Certainly the guidance coming out from the Trump administration, which provides grants through the U.S. Department of Transportation down to FTA and then down to us, was that the government was requesting that the focus of grant funds not be put toward diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. We found that in, I believe it was 2010, it could have been 2011, RTA passed a resolution for this DEI policy that you're seeing being repealed. Most organizations that we found have a policy that's put within their human resources department, their acquisitions staff, their OEO staff, but not a board-approved policy. We actually asked our lobbyists in Washington, D.C., could they assist us with finding any other entities, regional transit authorities, that had these policies board-approved. We were attempting to find some other entity that had a policy and what were they doing with it. We did not get any help in finding any other transit authority that actually had a board-approved DEI policy. We believe that other transit agencies have them, like within CODA, what I found on their website is that they practice and affirm the need for DEI, but within their human resources department and their OEO sections. Here it is a DEI policy. If you go into a Google search, one of the very first things that comes up is RTA's board-approved policy. Having a belief that the federal government, whether it be in a grant review or more likely in a triennial review, which we will be heading into later this month, which is a full review of every aspect of our operations, will be looking for those three words or those three letters, DEI. We believed it was necessary in order to be compliant with our grantors that we repeal that policy.
And thank you. And so with that being said, considering that, and based on your research of looking at other agencies and despite the fact that they apparently don't have a DEI policy, which is kind of mind-blowing to me, actually, do we have any other policy, whether it be within our HR policies or elsewhere, that this same language or similar is reflected? And if so, are we touching that language?
I'm thankful that Ms. Birdsong Terry yesterday asked me to phone a friend, and I do have Felicia Brooks-Williams from our OEO office here, and Carl Kirkland from the Office of Business Development. I will acknowledge that I am not aware of all of our policies. I am responsible for the ones that are board approved and that are in our personnel policies through human resources. So those are the only ones that I've been asked to make a change to. As I understand it, RTA's commitment to our own internal practices when it comes to hiring and when it comes to employee engagement, our employee resource groups, has been unchanged. This is truly a matter of being concerned that the federal government is going to follow through on its statements that when it is reviewing for grant compliance or conducting an audit, which we know we're heading into, that they are going to be looking for these trigger words: affirmative action, equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So
if I can add one thing, and I don't know if I'm quite answering the question, so stop me if I'm not. If I can ask Felicia and Carl to just come up to support Anna. And we don't need a lengthy explanation, but I just want to make sure that we provide a bird's eye overview of the processes that you have in your internal departments to be able to continue the commitment that we have as an agency to inclusionary practices to make sure that business development can continue as well as the OEO practices. And before you do that, I will kind of just reiterate the key points is that we're federal grantee award winners, right, if we're lucky. And so we've got to make sure that what Ms. Lavix was mentioning is the trigger words or the buzzwords. And so when you do Google RTA, we're very proud of the fact that DEI came up first. But we have to be cognizant of the idea that we have to continue to serve the public. And if DEI coming up first prohibits us from getting federal funding, then we have to pivot and be nimble. And that's really what you hear in the process of the code book is making sure that we're in compliance with the federal regulations that come down from the White House. And it's not been an easy conversation. It's been very disheartening. It's been very challenging. It's been very heartbreaking, I think, to have to rescind some of that language, but we have to be good stewards of the service that we provide. And the last thing that we want to do is not being able to get the award or the grant and then not be able to move people daily, and that's where we kind of land. But we do have the internal commitment to our processes to make sure that within what we can control that is not necessarily cherry-picked by the administration, we can do that. So if I can ask Felicia, who is over our OEO and our compliance in that regard, and also Carl, who's over our business development, to lend a couple words. Hopefully we can answer some of the questions.
Good morning. Thank you, CEO Terry. My name is Felicia Brooks Williams. I'm the Senior Manager of the Office of Equal Opportunity, ADA, and Organizational Culture. My office oversees civil rights in regards to Title VI, ensuring that we provide equal access to our service for all our customers. And you'll hear a presentation on that in January in regards to that, because we are still required to provide a report to FTA that we are providing that service. Also, I manage Title VII to ensure that we are providing equal rights to services to our employees. We do that internally and externally. I think I want to say thank you to our CEO and all who develop our mission statement, connecting the community. We connect the community internally. We ensure that our employees are educated, engaged, and empowered to connect the community to provide the service to all people. So we are continuing that work in a way that makes sure that we are providing fair and equitable service, I should say, equal access to our services, for our services. I hope that helped answer the question.
And before, as I switch at the dais there, before there are any questions, I will also say I appreciate Felicia and her team. We do meet quarterly. I want to say the requirement is annual, if I'm not mistaken, or semi-annual, and yes, twice a year, and we've doubled that. We've been doing that for a few years. I do serve as the Chief Civil Rights Officer for the authority. That was a request that was made by me about 4 years ago, give or take, to make sure that we don't drop the ball. And that was before any administration changes. And I think that's been pretty helpful, if I can say, to make sure that we are striving to make sure that diversity and inclusion is important to us and we don't drop that. Carl?
Yes. In addition, we do have the DBE program, which has not gone away, but what we did, we pivoted because we have a small business participation plan that has already been in effect. What we did was we pivoted to the SBE program, and we're going to start setting goals on the SBE program, implementing that program, because it's the personal net worth and the DBE net worth are the same. The only caveat is we're just going to pivot to the SBE program, set goals on the program, procurements, and make sure that we continue to assist our small business community through our outreach programs. So that information and the programming has not gone away.
And I appreciate all of the information, and part of me asking that question was to softball it so that everyone understands in different areas what we might be doing. On the other end, though, I am still concerned. I'm concerned about our commitment. I know that we say that in our practices and processes that we're still committed, but I don't want that commitment to get lost in language. I also understand the the caution of not being a target, whether it be online or other perception by the administration. I also understand that, but I just want to express my concern and wanting us to be conscious of that commitment, making sure that our constituents understand that commitment, and also wanting to ensure that there is some consistency across policies. I understand that this is specific to the board's policy, but there are other policies that touch on these same exact things that we are not touching. And so my concern is consistency. So if we're going to hit one, then I kind of want to know what we're doing with the others. This may, this may call for subsequent conversations that that I hope that the board to some extent is at least looped in on what kinds of conversations are going on, where the agency stands, and so on and so forth, just so that we have an understanding about what's happening, other than it coming before us and saying, hey, we're just stripping this policy, right? So just want us to keep that in mind.
If I can ask General Counsel Janet Burney to give a quick update, and not retroactively, but I have requested at the beginning of the year for legal to make a kind of a review of all things that might fall in conflict with the White House directives. And so legal has been proactively, along with marketing, Natoya's group as well, kind of looking through all of the things that we have out there, whether it's language that's in the annual report, for example. Nick Bigger and his team, scorecard language. There's a lot of these things that we've flagged. So if you notice these conversations that we have, it will come to you piecemeal because it is a flowing process. But the idea that we make these small tweaks sometimes can be unnoticed because they are small language adjustments, but it is a fluid process. And as the as the executive order list grows, I think at one point we were looking at 10 a night. Around 10:30 at night, I noticed there would be 10 in the morning that came out. We were reviewing those and making sure that we sweep through those. So Janet, if you wanted to just give a quick update on the work you've been doing.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Janet Burney, General Counsel for RTA. I want to assure the board that our legal department has been monitoring this particular situation since the beginning of the year. And in fact, you may recall that since January of 2025, there have been over 70 executive orders issued. And there were executive orders issued specifically with respect to DEI programs and ending discrimination clauses in contracts with agencies that are being given federal monies. We were, as other agencies in the region and across the nation, watching to see what additional guidance was coming forward. There wasn't a lot, but what is clear is going forward is that the administration is going to be looking at whether or not an applicant for a grant has certain policies in place. And they're not going to necessarily ask you to explain, they're just going to look and see if you got it. And so what we didn't want to be was in a situation where we got jackpotted because there's language someplace, somebody does a word search and something pops up. You don't often get a chance to explain away or clarify things, and we just did not want to be in that situation. We have taken a look at all of our policies. We're going to continue to do that, to monitor, to make sure that everything that we do aligns with the law and also with whatever federal mandates are coming. Be assured that the executive orders have not changed the Constitution of the United States. The executive orders have not changed statutory mandates, as Felicia Brooks-Williams mentioned. Title VI and Title VII are still the law. And there are other things that are still the law. And so we are going to make sure, irrespective of whether we have something that is called a DEI program, that we comply with the law and that there is no discrimination in what we do. And so that hasn't changed. And so we just wanted to make sure, in checking with everybody and any authority out there, to make sure that we could continue to do that and still be eligible for the funding. And so I just want to make sure that it's clear that we're not cherry picking what we come to you with. We want to make sure that we can do what is defensible. And we will maybe be coming to you with some other things as well. But there are some things we needed to fix before we closed out 2025. We couldn't wait any longer. We met other mandates that were required earlier in this year. We took out certain language that was in our contracts regarding affirmative action programs, et cetera. We redid, Anna's team redid our templates for contracts to make sure they complied. We made adjustments in light of the interim final rule regarding DBE programs. We made adjustments regarding goals. And so we're just trying to make sure that we keep RTA in a position to say that we are being true to our commitment to be a non-discriminating agency, to comply with all the laws, but also to make sure that we're poised to make sure we continue to connect the community by being eligible for every piece of funding there is available to keep our residents in this community able to traverse public transit in this community.
Thank you. And let me just say, lawyer to lawyer, I appreciate our general counsel, Janet Burney, and the office and the work that they do. I think it's important that the community just have an understanding. When I hear all of these things, I have an understanding from a legal perspective without being, of course, the agency's counsel. But I always want to make sure that everyone else has an understanding of the commitment and what we are doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it and the timing of how we're doing it and why that's important. So I appreciate everything that the agency has been doing, and I look forward to us continuing to protect the agency and provide great services. So thank you.
Thank you, and we appreciate your commitment and understanding. Thank you, Trustee Elder.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Any other questions on this?
Just real quick, I'm fine with this. I'm fine making sure we're eligible for FTA. I want to give kudos to previous boards in 2010 and 2021 for having these policies at the board level. And I would also like for us to keep this at hand if in 2029 or thereafter executive orders are rescinded, because if I'm still in this seat, I would love to pass this again in 2029. So thanks.
Anna, we would need a motion to move this, obviously, with some.
Mayor Kumar, just to clarify, do you want the whole package removed, or do you want to hold off on the finance-related resolutions?
If I understood Mr. Sleesman, and I think is leave the original language in there at the 25%. Let's continue that discussion of what an appropriate percentage is. I think a realistic percentage makes sense when I'm looking at head nods from the board, and I also think for management it gives you something then, that goal to strive for, and just have a good discussion on that and come up with what's realistic given what was dealt us during COVID and prior to that.
She wanted to clarify no changes.
Oh yeah, nope. And that pension is fine as is.
Okay.
I think I withdrew that. If we're down to 6, then we can manage that, and what those payouts are. That's pretty easy to look at what's in the fund and know that you have sufficient funds to pay out those retirees for their service.
So again, just wanted to clarify for the record, the board is fine with, or rather the committee of the whole is fine with moving forward on the proposed revisions to Chapter 460 and to Chapter 842.
Yeah, and I think for 460.02-C, if I think I'm thinking like Mr. Sleesman of just leaving the existing wording in there and have that discussion on the percentage. And so the striving towards as a goal, just removing that because, again, it's aspirational, but let's just be clear and put out what that aspirational goal is. Correct, Jeff?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, we have a motion to move this up with amendments and a further discussion on one item. Board meeting for vote.
So moved, Sleesman.
Second.
Aye.
Thank you.
Second, Elder.
Aye.
We'll call to order the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Sleesman?
Here.
Ms. Pachetti?
Here.
Mayor Gallo?
Here.
Mr. Love?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item is the approval of the minutes from November 18th, 2025. The board, or the committee rather, has those in front of us. If there are any revisions, comments, edits, speak now. If not, could I get a motion to approve?
Motion, Love.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Minutes stand approved. We have a few items this morning. The first is IFB procurement, a presentation of competitive procurement for the third phase of the repairs to the light rail retaining walls along the Blue Line. The presenters will be Derek Mankey and Jonathan Lawley. The floor is yours.
Start over. Good morning, Committee Chair Sleesman, members of the committee, and members of the board. My name is Derek Menke. I'm the engineering project manager for this resolution. I'll be presenting with Jonathan Lawley, the contract administrator, on the construction of the light rail retaining wall repair Phase 3. This project is located along Van Aken Boulevard in Shaker Heights between Ashby Road and Avalon Road. Shown in red in the picture, there's guard walls along at the street level along Van Aken Boulevard, and then there's in yellow there's retaining walls at the track level that keep the embankment from falling into the right of way. And then there's also a parking stall near Avalon Road that has a guard wall along it as well. So the brick veneer on the guard walls is delaminating that you can see from some of those pictures there. The concrete structure of both the guard walls and retaining walls is experiencing degradation with exposed rebar in some areas, and the retaining wall weep holes at the track level are clogged with trees missing from the tree wells and tree overgrowth on the embankment. The construction of this project will include, but not be limited to, repair to the concrete structure of both the guard walls and retaining walls, replacement of the brick veneer on the guard walls, clearing of the weep holes in the retaining walls, clearing and grubbing of the embankment between these walls, removing all trees in guard wall tree wells to replace with new trees, and maintaining traffic during Van Aken Boulevard lane closures.
Good morning, Jonathan Lawley, Program Contract Manager for this project. The invitation for bid was issued on September 22nd, 2025. 15 interested parties reviewed the solicitation and 4 submitted a bid. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder for this project was Cook Paving and Construction Incorporated. Their subcontractors in this project will be McCoy Masonry, Vermilion Tree, and Down to Earth Landscaping. Cook Paving and Construction Company Incorporated has successfully completed projects for the RTA, the City of Cleveland, Cleveland Clinic, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and Ohio DAS, among others. Staff is requesting this committee recommend award to Cook Paving and Construction Company Incorporated for this project in a total contract amount not to exceed $1,360,138. Any questions?
Any questions from the committee or the board? All right. Hearing none, do I have a motion to move this forward?
Motion, Love.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We'll move this to the full board. And for the next item, we'll retain Mr. Lawley and have Brian Schultz present an IFB procurement of a competitive procurement for the removal and replacement of 2 paratransit vehicle in-ground lifts. Floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good morning, Chair Sleesman, committee members, members of the board. I'm Brian Schultz. I'm a resident engineer at RTA. I will be presenting the paratransit vehicle lift replacement Phase 1 project. The scope of work is to locate all existing utilities that may be affected by the work, complete removal of the existing in-ground lifts in bays 2 and 3, install 2 heavy-duty minimum 64,000-pound capacity piston-style 2-post in-ground vehicle lifts, saw cut demolish, and removal of existing reinforced floor slabs and foundation around structures to be replaced, install conduits for hydraulic and compressed air lines between lifts and power units, place concrete for new pit foundations and sidewalls. Some project notes is the original pump motor and controls from the pumping units and tank assembly will be turned over to the GCRTA. 2 mobile column lifts will be rented by the contractor to be used to maintain service during the removal installation of the new lifts. Contractor shall provide training on operations and controls of new lift systems, coordination with the facility managers required during construction to maintain service. Here's some photos of the 2 existing lifts currently in operation. And here's some example images of a newer heavy-duty lift model from another facility at CBM to illustrate potential upgrade options.
Good morning again. The invitation for bid for this project was issued on October 3rd, 2025. 16 parties reviewed the solicitation and 4 submitted a bid. SLE Technologies Incorporated from Maxwell, Indiana is the lowest responsible vendor for this project. SLE Technologies Incorporated has successfully completed projects for the Greater Peoria Mass Transit, Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit, Madison Metro Transit, among others. SLE Technologies Incorporated has also has current projects with Akron Metro, River Valley Mass Transit in Illinois, CODA, and the city of Amerin, Ellisville, Illinois, among others. Staff is requesting this committee recommend award to SLE Technologies Incorporated for this project in an amount not to exceed $612,814.42. Questions?
Any questions from the committee or the board? Hearing none, I'll move to approve this one. Do I have a second? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm still reading and rereading. So for myself and maybe members of the public, can you just back up a little bit and explain to us what an in-ground lift is?
Here, I'll go back to the picture. I'm a visual person.
We had that question in the dry run as well. You're not alone.
So in-ground, yes, go ahead. Oh. And
we were anticipating your questions. Go right ahead.
More specifically, an in-ground lift, it's below ground, most of the structure, so it's pretty flush, so a vehicle can drive right onto it. Instead of, there's other lifts out there, platform lifts, above ground lifts. You'll see posts that are above ground. We require this kind of lift due to the previous lifts were in ground, and we also require the capacity to be 64,000 pounds. This lift not only supports our paratransit fleet, but it supports our non-revenue vehicle fleet, which ranges from regular pool cars that we use daily to snow and plow trucks. We have to rate the heaviest vehicle to be on the lift, which is our snow and plow trucks, which range between 30 to 50,000 pounds.
Do you still have a question?
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. In that case, I'll move this to the full board. Do I have a second?
Second, Love.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? This will move, the passes, and we'll move to the full board for approval. Our next item is the 2026 budget, a discussion on the fiscal year 2026 budget. The presentation from Kay Satula and Wendy Finn. The floor is yours.
Mr. Sleesman, before we go into the budget presentation, there is another presentation for the ballast regulator.
Oh, sorry, did I miss one? Apologies. We have another IFB procurement first. Apologies. Presentation of a competitive procurement for the purchase of a ballast regulator. We will retain Jonathan Lawley and hear from James Burke.
Good morning, Chair Sleesman, members of the committee, members of the board. My name is James Burke, the vehicle engineer managing this project. I'm here with Jonathan Lawley, again, presenting the procurement of a ballast regulator. Railroad ballast is the layer of crushed stone that sits under and around the railroad ties, and its main purpose is to create a stable base for the track, holding it in place to support the heavy weight of trains. A ballast regulator is the rail work vehicle that profiles this ballast or shapes the ballast for proper drainage and regulates or sweeps ballast off the tracks with a giant rotating broom. Our current one is shown on the right. The current machine is over 20 years old and doesn't currently regulate through our light rail platforms. It is also too wide to fit to the new platforms when they will be extended. So the new vehicle will need to be able to navigate the new extended platforms. Pictured at the right is the Knox Kershaw KBR 925 ballast regulator. It fully complies with the GCRTA specification. The machine will have a full width broom to sweep the entire tie for efficiency throughout the track, but will need a side shifting mechanism to navigate extended platforms as shown on the left. It'll move back and forth about 12 inches. The new ballast regulator is planned to arrive on property before the platforms will be extended, so there won't be any delays in managing the track. Jonathan?
The invitation for bid for this project was issued on July 21st, 2025. 12 interested parties reviewed the solicitation and 3 submitted a bid. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder for this project is Knox Kershaw Incorporated. Knox Kershaw Incorporated was established in 1924 and incorporated in 1946. They are currently located in Montgomery, Alabama, and have 69 employees. Knox Kershaw Incorporated provides ballast regulators and other maintenance of way equipment to Class I and transit railroads, as well as domestic and international contractors as well. Some current customers that they have are Long Island Railroad, New Jersey Transit, Metro North, and Amtrak, among others. The staff is requesting this committee recommend award to Knox Kershaw Incorporated for this procurement in a contract amount not to exceed $566,558. Questions?
Thank you for the presentation, and apologies to Mr. Schultz for meeting Mr. Burke's name twice. Do I have any questions from the board or from the committee or the board? Hearing none, I'll move to bring this to the full board for approval. Do I have a second?
Second, Pachetti.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This passes and will go before the full board for approval. Now, we have a discussion on the fiscal year 2026 budget presentation. The presenters will be Kay Satula and Wendy Finn.
Morning, Chair Sleesman, members of the committee, and members of the board. My name is Kay Satula. I'm the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. With me is Wendy Finn, who is a Budget Management Analyst 3. We will be presenting the proposed 2026 budget, and after the public hearing, we will recommend the budget to the full board for approval.
Good morning. As a review of the 2026 budget schedule, the CIP was adopted in May to meet NOACA, ODOT, and FTA timelines. The 2026 tax budget was approved in July. On November 18th, we presented the proposed 2026 general fund budget, which includes operating budget and transfers to other funds. Today is the second presentation, public hearing, and recommendation that the committee present the proposed 2026 budget to the full board for adoption on December 16th. For the economic assumptions that were used to develop the 2026 budget, inflation is projected at 2.5% based on Federal Open Market Committee estimates. Interest rates are projected at 3.5%. Ridership and passenger fare revenues are projected to maintain their current levels as a service reduction will be needed in the summer of 2026. Sales tax is budgeted to increase 2.2%, and wage increases are budgeted based on 2026 contractual agreements. Revenues are budgeted at $363.8 million. The largest source of revenues is sales and use tax, which is 76.6% of the revenue budget. Passenger fares are 8.6%, and a transfer of $44 million from the Revenue Stabilization Fund will be needed. The expenditures are budgeted at $373.2 million. Most of this is needed for salary and fringe benefits, which combined are 73% of the expenditure budget. Transfers to other funds are 8.2%, and all the other categories combined make up the other 19% of the expenditure budget. We knew this was going to be a challenging budget with the increasing healthcare costs. We also budgeted for increases in contractual wages, service contracts, and maintenance contracts. To mitigate these costs, we made cost-cutting efforts, and those include reducing 56 vacant positions, implementing a hiring freeze, reducing the overtime and non-personnel budgets, and eliminating the transfer to the rolling stock reserve fund, and restructuring business functions, duties, and responsibilities. The proposed 2026 budget has 2,368 full-time equivalent positions. This is 56 fewer positions than is in the current year budget. In addition to that, 28 vacant positions have been moved to a vacancy pool. We'll continue to monitor positions, functions, duties, and responsibilities through 2026. Again, the 2026 budget has 56 fewer positions than the current year budget, and those position reductions are distributed among the RTA divisions. In addition to that, there is a transfer of the Telephone Information Center that was moved from the Operations Division to the Executive Division, and that's the reason the Executive Division has a larger number of FTEs than this year. The 2026 recommended general fund budget is $373.2 million. With the actions taken, the 2026 budget is $800,000 less than the current year fiscal budget. For a general fund overview, 2026 revenues are budgeted at $363.8 million, which includes $44 million to be transferred from the reserve fund. After operating expenditures and transfers to other funds, the projected ending balance is $28.8 million, which would leave a 1-month reserve based on current data and our projections. The 2027 and 2028 projections show that there will not be a one-month reserve in future years. This chart shows the amounts transferred from the Revenue Stabilization Fund and its ending balance each year. A $50.5 million transfer is budgeted in 2025, which will leave a remaining balance of $78 million. The 2026 recommended budget has a transfer of $44 million, which would leave a balance of about $35 million. If we leave a 15-day reserve in the Revenue Stabilization Fund, which is about $15 million, then we would only be able to transfer $23.5 million in 2027. The 2026 budget execution includes continuing the hiring freeze that was put in place this year, continuing to restructure business functions, continuing to review all positions, and the need to implement a service reduction starting in the summer of 2026. Are there any questions?
Questions from the committee or the board as a whole?
Raj, I think you and I talked about this offline, but just wanted to touch base of what budget amounts, or K, sorry, wherever, but relative to healthcare going forward based on this year's experience, what you have included in the budget for 26?
From Oswald, our consultants, we have a 24% increase in the healthcare costs.
On that note, how long is our contract for that with our current providers?
Good morning, Trustee Elder, members of the board, Ms. Birdsong Terry. I'm George Fields, the Deputy General Manager for Human Resources. So our healthcare consultant vendor ends this February, so we're in the process of actually going through an RFP to get a new healthcare consultant. With regard to our healthcare plans in general, those end at the end of 2026, so we will be entering into an RFP during 2026 to be able to solicit for new healthcare vendors or healthcare plan vendors for 2027 going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. And George, while you're here at the dais, I just wanted to get some additional clarification. I know you and Raj have taken some opportunity to follow up from my question at the last meeting, just relative to comparison spending from other public agencies, other transit authorities. I'm not sure if you could just speak really high level to that relative to healthcare costs and what that looks like relative to RTA.
Yeah, so on a high level, we have 4 major large public sector employers here in Northeast Ohio. For going into the next year, as we're getting out of this year, we are at a cost per employee per month of a roughly $2,100 cost per employee per month. Out of the 4 public sector vendors or public sector organizations, that is higher than 3 out of the 4. So there's one organization that's similar in size that is roughly at $2,400 per month. They too are estimating about a 21% increase going into next year. As it relates to your other question, Trustee Love, I know you asked about November and December because we're coming through November and December to be able to gauge where we'll be at in terms of the $9 million appropriation for 2020-25. We ended November at about $2.8 million. That's roughly $400,000 less than our budget for November. Our December budget is about $3.2 million. We expect that's probably where we'll be at, in which case we may fall below that $9 million appropriation that was made for 2025, in which case then Mr. Gautam will be able to return some of those funds back to the general fund.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Can you go back to the slides? I don't know, there's not a slide number, but there was a slide related to the Revenue Stabilization Fund. And I know we're having conversations about this is a conversation about the 2026 budget, but I was wondering if staff can share how we are planning for the clearly predicted future headwinds related to this fund and the depletion of it. So are we having conversations about preparing for that?
So we're, with the board resolution that will be coming with the code book, we are trying to keep a 15-day balance in the Revenue Stabilization Fund. So that way we will not deplete it. We will have to come back to the board to remove that and put that into the general fund. That's what we're trying not to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee or the board? Mr. Love.
Just one more follow-up question. Given the trajectory and the trend lines, I'm just curious how you all are thinking more systemically about sort of incorporating more budgetary forecasts, into the process, into the budgetary process, and look at 3 years out?
So we have run various scenarios from 5 to 10 years. And what we save this year may help us get to or 2026, may help us get to a 1-month balance in 2027. And so we are trying to do everything we can with the budget execution so that we can save that funding and move that toward 2027 and beyond.
Yep. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yes. Yes, please. Can you go back to the chart? I think it was the assumptions being made on the number of employees. I think it was prior to this. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, go back one. Maybe George can just help us understand the pool, how that relates to the others in this list, and then also the reductions. This shows the departments. Is this the department that they're currently in?
Correct. So we've reduced positions, vacant positions from every division, including operations. We also transferred telephone information center, the care center, from operations to the executive division. So that's why you see that increase in executive division of 11. The pool positions are vacant positions. We kept those because they may be needed. They're still vital, but right now they are currently vacant. And so we moved those to the pool as we restructure among the divisions and within the departments. We can put those back into the various divisions as needed.
So I'll just add, this is Raj, the Deputy General Manager of Finance. There are no, as far as the 2026 budget is concerned, there are no dollars associated with those pooled positions. So they're just FTEs in case they're needed based on business needs in any of the other divisions.
But there are no budget dollars?
There are no budget dollars associated with those positions.
Any other questions? Okay.
If I could, I just wanted to say thank you for your attention to detail and the care you're taking with the budget. Going back to some of what my colleagues have raised, I think we'll just have to continue a dialogue about what the long term looks like for our finances. And I want the public to be aware that this is ongoing, and I really appreciate the staff's commitment to transparency in the process. That's really critical, and I just really appreciate it. So thank you.
Okay, if there are any other questions, and if not, I will move to suspend as we need to have a public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, this committee now stands in suspension for a public hearing. Move forward with this statement.
This is the second of two official public hearings on the proposed 2026 budget for the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. The 2026 budget is available for inspection in the Office of Management and Budget and on the authority's website and social media pages. Public notice of this hearing has been given by publication in the Cleveland Plain Dealer on October 26th and October 31st, 2025, and the Cleveland Call and Post on October 29th and November 1st, 2025, as well as by posting a notice in the first floor lobby of the authority's main office building and on the authority's website and social media pages. The proposed 2026 budget was presented to the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee and the RTA Board of Trustees on November 18th and December 2nd, 2025. The proposed general fund budget estimates revenues at $363.8 million. The two largest sources of revenues are sales and use tax, budgeted at $278.7 million, and passenger fares at $31.5 million. Total operating expenditures are budgeted at $342.5 million. Healthcare costs increased by 34% in the 2025 budget and are projected to increase by another 24% in 2026. Through continued efforts to reduce expenses in 2025 and the budget for 2026, 56 vacant positions have been removed from the 2026 budget for a total of 2,397 positions. Telephone Information Center positions were moved from the Operations Division to the Executive Division. Budgeted overtime and non-personnel items have been reduced and a hiring freeze is in place. Transfers to other funds are budgeted at $30.7 million to support expenses and maintain the recommended fund balances for the bond retirement, insurance, supplemental pension, and capital improvement funds. A transfer of $44 million will be needed from the Revenue Stabilization Fund to the General Fund to maintain a one-month ending balance. We are aware that the Revenue Stabilization Fund will not be able to support the budget through 2027. All personnel costs, non-personnel costs, and service levels will continue to be monitored throughout 2026 to identify additional cost-cutting measures and mitigate the budget shortfalls to ensure future sustainability. The 2026 through 2030 Capital Improvement Plan, or CIP, was adopted by the Board of Trustees on May 20th, 2025. The CIP provides for the purchase, maintenance, and improvement of the authority's capital assets through a programmed allocation of available financial resources. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll move into public comment. Is there anyone in person to give comment? And step to the podium. Give your first and last name, city of residence.
Hi, my name is Mia George, and I am a resident of Lakewood. Okay, am I good to go?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Mia. I live in Lakewood, and I depend on public transit to get to work, to buy groceries, to see friends and family. And being able to do this is something I really love about living here. However, I wanted to comment today and voice concerns about the financial issues that RTA is facing. I'm really alarmed to hear about service cuts already planned for the summer of 2026, not just for my own sake as a rider, but also for the people who will be cut off from jobs, healthcare, and education without the means to get there. As RTA runs out of its Revenue Stabilization Fund and approaches a fiscal cliff, it is critical now more than ever that other sources of funding are secured to avoid further service cuts or fare hikes in the future. As for a short-term solution, I would strongly suggest that RTA utilizes what remains in the Revenue Stabilization Fund to cover any deficits for 2026 rather than cutting service. Additionally, there are several viable long-term solutions that RTA should consider to avoid further cuts in the future and restore any service that has been cut already. First, the Board of Trustees has the power to put a sales tax or property tax levy on the countywide ballot. For example, RTA could increase its current 1% sales and use tax by 0.5% to balance its books. Another option is to redirect some of the parking tax money to RTA. This parking tax generates $14 million annually, and while it is currently directed to maintain the Browns Stadium, RTA could aim to use a portion of these funds to go toward its own operations. The bottom line is this: cutting service is going to hit riders incredibly hard. Lowering costs through service reductions is an irresponsible attempt at a short-term solution. Now is the time to secure new funding sources for the future, and it is the only way to avoid disaster moving forward. I really appreciate your time today to hear out my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. George. It's appreciated. Are there any more in-person comments?
Chris Martin, City of Cleveland. I don't really have much prepared today, so I'll be like, I'm kind of in my feelings, and I'm going to keep this pretty brief. I want to reiterate for the umpteenth time, Tuesdays at 9 a.m. are a terrible time for you all to meet. If you want public participation, I'm curious on the hiring freeze. Does that apply to both operators and cops too? just out of curiosity. Now, a bunch of you were appointed by a former member of this body, now a so-called climate champion mayor. I'm curious how cutting transit service and forcing folks into cars advances the mayor of the city of Cleveland's climate justice agenda. Several others of you were appointed by a county executive who seems to love nothing more than attending climate justice summits. Maybe you can tell him he should pay a little bit more attention to the climate injustice you all will be voting for when you cut service. He cuts HHS funding, you all cut transit service, connecting the community indeed. Your books haven't been balanced for almost a decade, yet I understand you've only had preliminary discussions about a levy. You got a reprieve through COVID relief funding, but now the chickens have come home to roost. What will you tell yourselves when you vote to cut service? Will you feel shame?
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Do we want to answer the freeze question or?
We can. Raj, do you want to address the 56?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So the hiring freeze, it does not apply to our key positions, operators, laborers, trying to think mechanics, for example, any safety-related issues and stuff like that, that does not apply to them. We did institute a new process where, subject to the CEO's approval, George Fields, DGM of HR, and I will jointly review any requests for positions to be filled. And of course, CEO has the final say on it and stuff, but we are conscious about the need for certain positions that we need to continue doing that.
Yeah, thanks. I don't want to necessarily set a precedent that every single question has to be answered immediately, but that was pretty easy clarification. So, and thanks, Chris. Lou, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Right now, we will definitely have a very nice, pretty white holiday season. However, our budget is showing red. It's still a color to celebrate. But the situation here is, as Chris Martin already mentioned, county cut heavily on health and human services. Not just homeless services, for example, even Adams Ford or others are all being cut. But at the same time, all of the government agencies and even nonprofit organizations, even the business corporates, everybody will all get hit by this health insurance increase for you, any organization, to lawfully hire all your employees based on the contract with union or without union. But the thing is, people's lives cannot be put on hold. We cannot really wait till this administration's executive orders or whatever, a wild imagination to be gone. People still have illness to deal with. People still need to go to school. Definitely people still need food. If we cannot find other ways to increase our revenue rather than our fare box, I think we should be very serious considering some of the options Clevelanders for Public Transit has mentioned in the past. There are other resources we can consider to increase our revenue locally. Otherwise, not just we may not have enough money to pay our employees and continue cutting services, then we go back to the death spirals, which actually defeats the purpose all of your effort has been putting in the recent few years. Please, if possible, strengthening our training for our operators, mechanics, because we know we have to slow down the hiring. Even our workforce still has a shortage. Please try not to cut important means that our county residents still relies on. There's no way for all these things to push people into cars, because when health insurance rise, guess what? Auto insurance can go up too. And all other things can go up too due to the inflation and this and that. People already cannot afford having cars. Please, let people to ride transit safely and efficiently. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Are there any other in-person comments? Go ahead.
My name is Christopher Crumity, stay in St. Clair Superior, right up the street. I'm gonna keep it brief. I don't have anything written down or nothing. This is my first time speaking. I rely on the transit to go to work. I work all the way in the west side on Lorraine, 134th Street. I have a little brother who relies on transit every day to get to school and back. And I just want to echo some of the things said here by the people who came up before me. There's already so many cuts and so much pressure that are going to be affecting these people, along with the service cuts to the RTA, and I really encourage y'all to find another solution. Somebody said earlier that Mayor Bibb was a part of this board. I don't know to what extent, but he just closed 12 schools. It's going to be so many kids that have to go a lot farther distances than they are used to. One of the schools by where I used to live is one of those schools on that list. If I had been a student, I just graduated last year. If I had been a student still, I would be having to find a new way to school, figuring out what I'm going to do with these 2026 cuts. And I just want to reiterate, money gets passed around in this city every day. Somebody mentioned that we could redistribute some of the things being used towards the Browns parking. They just used $600 million on the Browns stadium, you know, and that's something that people had zero input on. And if this is something so reliant on federal grants, I think we should be thinking about how we could be putting more pressure on our local government to support this. The people need RTA, and I'm sure most people can see how the RTA is the victim in this situation. So I just want to make that clear as well. But we need that type of pressure. Money is passed around every single day in the city, hundreds of millions of dollars. All right, that's all I got to say, really.
Thanks, Christopher. Are there any more in-person comments? If not, we'll go to the phones. Are there any callers? And before we get to the phones, just a reminder for folks that this hearing is about the budget, and we'll try to keep it to that. Are there any callers?
We do have one caller.
Go ahead.
Caller, please go ahead.
My name is Lakita Worley. I live in Cleveland, Ohio. I don't understand, why is the 53 being canceled and cut? What bus are we supposed to take back and forth from downtown? I have anxiety, and that bus is very personal and it's private for people who have anxiety. Not a lot of people on that bus. The 51 is very crowded, and I hate that bus. Give us an accordion bus for the 51. We have more room, more space, and we not crowded on that bus. I don't understand, why is the 53 being canceled? Can anybody answer my question, please?
I don't know if we can right now, Keita, but we can make sure to get back to you. I have your contact info if RTA doesn't, but we've got it. All right, Keita, we'll get to you about the 53. Are there any other, do you have anything else?
Sorry about that.
There you go.
Hit the button early.
You're on now, Keita.
Ma'am, the caller is dropped.
All right. So we'll get back to her on that one. Are there any other callers?
That was the only caller.
All right, thanks. Are there any web form comments?
No, there were not.
All right, if that is the case, we can end the public hearing portion of this. Do I have a motion to reconvene the committee?
So move, Pachetti.
Second, Love.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This committee is now reconvened, and I think actually, Chanel, did you have a comment or question before we move on?
Yeah, I'm still catching up here. And so I just have a few questions, and thank you all for your public comments. And these questions don't necessarily have to be answered today, but as we go through this process and as I continue to learn more, even regarding service cuts, I just want to better understand how those decisions are made, and making sure that we're take into account the impact on particular low to moderate income communities. Like, are we looking at tracks? Are we looking at that data information and that demographic information? I'm pretty sure we are, but I would like to have a view into that. And as we are looking at that, earlier today, we, as part of the updates to the book, we talked about transit-oriented development. So are we thinking about where are those investments in investments to services now, but also future investments to align with growing community development, especially around affordable housing in our community. So I think, of course, we need to focus on now, but where are we looking towards in the future? And then my last question, like members of the public, I would like to better understand what conversations have occurred regarding a levy. When was the last time RTA pursued a levy? I know there was a conversation. The vote did not move forward, but what research have we done about our ability to do that as a board? And what would the potential revenue be if we were to pursue that and put on the ballot? So all the questions, are we doing the study to answer all the questions if we want to pursue a levy? Because I am really concerned about the future of the budget. 2026, I think we're going to have to make hard decisions, but I'm thinking about 2027 and 2028. So those are just a few questions. Maybe they can't be all answered today, but I definitely think we should have a conversation around them.
So happy to answer to the extent that we can today. So welcome to the board. Good that you've got a lot of questions. A lot of things that you mentioned have been mentioned by a lot of your peers. So we are in research mode. When it comes, I'll kind of go backwards. When it comes to the tax levy, that's something that has always been on the proverbial table, right? Even before my tenure here. We've had several conversations about it, but I think it's becoming more of a realistic option for us. But we also have to be able to table set and understand who we would be up against, so to speak. And I don't mean people, but I mean entities, right? And so I think we are in research mode. That's probably something we would be able to come to the board with by Q1 to be able to understand what those options may be. It takes a lot of research to figure out what our monies may be, what process goes into it. It's not an issue where we could snap our fingers and put it on the ballot tomorrow, but absolutely that is on the table for thinking about how that works in the future. Also for TOD, so you heard today that we're putting monies aside, so to speak, for TOD. That's really the first administrative step to be able to support the theoretical planning for TOD. We've talked about it a long time. We have a lot of projects that we've come in front of the board over the last few years that we realize that we're getting better at it. It's not anything that I think we were adept at for years. We were good implementers of the service. We were good bridge builders. We're good vehicle acquirers and that kind of thing. But TOD is a different animal. And so that's something that we wanted to take our time with. But we're setting up the mechanism to be able to really work in that space. And as part of that, our strategic plan is part of it. So we're actually at the inflection point. We're at the halfway mark. We're a little beyond it. Our strategic plan was originally 10 years, so 2020 to 2030 roughly. And we're going to be reviewing that at a little more than halfway mark. So we actually have an RFP out for that now that's being evaluated. That will also be discussed later on in the spring to be able to make sure that we don't forget anything, and TOD has a place in it now where it didn't really have a concrete location before. You'll also start to see through our scorecard that will be unveiled closer to the beginning of the year. TOD takes a prominent place in that as well. So we're kind of working through all of that. But the housing and affordable options is part of that kind of presentation. And then also decisions made on service cuts. So we are not there yet. We're doing the background work now, which is why I believe it was Ms. Fain that mentioned we would be approaching probably summer, somewhere between June and August of 26 to be able to realize those cuts, but we can't give detail on where they would be, but there is an entire analysis that does go into play. Joel Freilich, he's back there, is our director of service management, as well as a whole host of business intelligence folks, as well as operations and HR and just everybody to be able to think through who would be impacted. So when we do get to that point, which would be relatively soon, we'll come out and lay that out for you as well, and be able to catch you up to that process.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback on that, I think I said it last time too, we need to get an idea of what kind of budget numbers we're trying to save through service cuts, and that is a whole process. So if we're looking at summer, we gotta get moving. All right. Are there any more questions or comments from the committee or the board? If not, I believe we have a staff recommendation.
Staff requests that the Operational Planning and Infrastructure Committee recommend the fiscal year 2026 budget to the full board for approval.
All right, we've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Pichetti.
Second, Gallo.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that stands approved, and we'll move to the full board for approval. That is all of our items today for this committee. I will move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second, Love.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This committee stands adjourned at 10:43.
I'd like to call to order the Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee on December 2nd, 2025 at just shy of 10:45 this morning. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Weiss?
Here.
Ms. Pichetti?
Here.
Ms. Elder?
Here.
Mr. Sleesman?
Here.
Ms. Wiggum? We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have two items on the agenda today. The first is a discussion of the property insurance renewal, and presenters will be Wayne Colonna and Ray Battle. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Good morning, Mayor Weiss, committee members, and members of the board. My name is Wayne Colonna, and I'm the Acting Director of Risk Management. I will be presenting on our property insurance renewal program. I also have with me Ray Battle. He's the Senior Vice President for Aon, and he's also responsible for the property placement for GCRTA. Okay. Before I get into the property renewal, I just wanted to let the board members know of our other insurance programs that we do procure here at GCRTA. First off, the GCRTA maintains a casualty insurance program for protection of assets against catastrophic loss. The three parts to this program include excess liability, which has a $95 million limit and a $5 million self-insured retention. Excess workers' compensation, which has a $10 million limit and a $750,000 self-insured retention. And finally, the public officials liability / employment practices liability, which is a $5 million limit with a $250,000 self-insured retention for the public officials piece and a $500,000 self-insured retention for the employment practices liability. And this program went into effect on September 1st of 2025. Secondly, the GCRT requires protection from employee dishonesty, inside and outside premises theft / burglary, computer fraud, and other blanket crime coverages. Our crime policy, it goes into effect on February 16th of 2026, and it is a $5 million limit with a $250,000 self-insured retention. And lastly, GCRTA maintains a cyber liability insurance program that protects the organization from losses due to business interruption, digital asset destruction, system failure, social engineering and cybercrime, and cyber extortion and ransomware. This policy has a $5 million limit with a $50,000 deductible, and we're currently working on this, and it'll go into effect on February 28th of 2026. Okay, so on to the property insurance renewal. GCRTA carries an all-risk property insurance policy. Covered perils include fire, wind, flood, and collapse, among others. This is a replacement cost coverage policy. It protects our real and personal property for which GCRTA is responsible. So our real property meaning our buildings, and our personal property meaning our contents. It also covers our bus garages, rail complex, rail stations, rail and bus fleet, non-collision only. Okay. Our incumbent carriers are Liberty Mutual and Evanston. Our total insured value for this program is $2.04 billion. The first program is an all-risk property program written by Liberty Mutual for the coverage of all GCRTA real and personal property, including rolling stock when garaged. It has a blanket limit of $500 million and a deductible of $250,000. The second program is our rolling stock policy written by Evanston Insurance Company for the coverage of GCRTA rolling stock when rolling for both rail and bus. This has a blanket limit of $25 million and a deductible of $500,000. At this time, I will pass it over to Ray.
Thank you. As I've mentioned in the past when I presented, the property insurance marketplace is a cyclical market. As the losses in the industry go up, typically the rates go up, but we're in an interesting time in this marketplace. While the property insurance market is looking at around $138 billion in losses, which is approximately 40% higher in the industry than last year. But we're also having a very benign hurricane activity season with no landfill hurricanes hit the U.S. The majority of the losses that occurred in the property marketplace, commercial property marketplace, has to do with severe convective storms, tornadoes and hail that you guys read about all the time, and also the outbreak of the California wildfires early in the year. Those are representing approximately $100 million of those $140 million worth of losses in the year. Despite those losses, the average property rates for your industry segment, for GCRTA's industry segment, actually has been decreasing over the year, and has been decreasing for your sector on average around 4.88% so far this year. Forecasting to your property renewal date, which is January 1st of 2026, absent any, and I would say multiple catastrophic industry losses, we anticipate that rate decreases are going to continue through the first quarter of 2026. Your partnership with Liberty Mutual and Evanston has provided a very consistent foundation for you guys over the last 5 years, and they have proactively come to the table with a very aggressive and I think complimentary renewal proposal that represents their filling of your accounts. Again, when we negotiate on your behalf, and I've been negotiating on your behalf for the last six or seven years, and I appreciate the opportunity to represent GCRTA in the marketplace, but we negotiate rates. Rates are the basis of what we negotiate. Your insurable values is applied to that rate, which then generates your premium. If you look at the exhibit here, you'll see that your insurable values have went up almost 5%. Your rail portfolio, or rolling stock portfolio, that's been up almost 10%. That represents the estimated cost of those new rail cars and the projected budget that's going forward. As you can see, we negotiated a rate decrease of 10% for both lines of coverage for your rolling stock and for your all-risk property, and that generates a variance in the report year over year of around 3.86%. So your expiring premium of 1.5 million has been reduced to around 1.4 million. As I mentioned before, both Liberty Mutual and Evanston has come through with very aggressive proposals for you guys. Both of those markets have quoted a rate decrease of 10%. And again, if I reference back to your industry segment, those average rate decreases for your industry segment is 4.8%, so they've kind of doubled that rate credit for you. When you apply that 10% rate decrease against your updated values, that total renewal premium is $1,453,938.
Okay. The $1,453,938 premium represents a decrease approximately of 3.86% below the 2025 premium. The premium includes a total insured valuation of $2.035 billion, which is an increase from the $1.945 billion in 2025. The new premium is $226,062 below the budgeted amount of $1.68 million. Final renewal results will be summarized in a resolution containing our recommendations to be brought to the board for approval at the December 16th, 2025 meeting. Are there any questions?
Questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have a question. Primarily, it's just a summary. You guys hit on some things here that were decreases, as compared with the marketplace, but then there were increases in some areas. So can you just high level what increased and what decreased?
Your insurable value, so the cost for the replacement costs of your buildings, contents, and equipment, that is the basis of what your rate is applied against. That increased almost 4.64%.
Okay.
Your values, again, the rating basis for your rail stock and your buses, your vehicles, rolling stock, that increased almost 10%. So those were the increases in the insurable values, which the rate is then applied against. So the decreased rate is applied against that.
Was that increase, and that's due to the new rail cars?
The increase in the rolling stock is that.
Okay.
The increase in the building and contents is their inflationary factor for current costs to replace your contents and your equipment.
Okay.
I could just follow up on that. Just walk me through the yellow line versus the colors. And I was trying to reconcile the 10% decrease in premium, but then I also saw 3.8.
Okay. The rate is the basis for the calculation of premium. So that rate is what we negotiate with the marketplace. That rate decreased by 10%. You then apply your new rate against your new insurable values, that $2.035 billion. That rate is per 100, so you multiply those two numbers per 100, and you get the premium of, $950,000. Plus, you have your TRIA, which is terrorism, your Terrorism Insurance Act, required by the government, or it's TRIA, for you guys choose to purchase it. That comes up to the $960,191, and you do the same thing on the rolling stock million applied against the rate of 0.081 per, and you'll get that total premium of 503,747. Whereas rate times exposure per
Rate went down,
rate
value
went, down,
went up.
Value went up.
And
Correct.
That's
where the 3.8% comes in.
Thank you. That's helpful. Other questions from the committee? I have to say I appreciate the good news on this front. I can't remember, I don't think I can count on one hand the number of times property insurance has gone down.
It's been a tough marketplace. You guys
tough
have experienced a
marketplace.
tough marketplace.
And in a year that we can use the savings.
And let me just add, I think you're a great presenter, because to present something like this in such a simplistic, straightforward way is a blessing, truly. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from the committee or the board? Okay, the action today is to pass this on to the full board, is that? Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll make a motion to proceed to move this forward to the full board. Is there a second?
Second, Elder.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We'll move forward to the full board. The second item we have today is a discussion of the 2026 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. The presenter is Kevin Case. Good morning. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mayor Weiss, and the committee, and Ms. India Birdsong. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the 2026 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. And we'll start with a little bit of background. I'm not sure, I know we have some new membership in the board. And so we thought we'd start with a little bit of history and just explain a little bit about what the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan is and where it came from. And so we'll start with a new requirement that was introduced to us in 2020 by CFR by way of FTA and CFR 673. Made a requirement to transit agencies have a public transportation agency safety plan. The framework was based on the National Public Transportation Safety Plan published by FTA. And in 2026, which I'm going to be asking you for approval, this will be our 7th version of the, as we abbreviate it, the PTASP. What the PTASP, some of the requirements were that your agency safety plan be flexible and scalable to your transit property, that it include requirements for all rail transit agencies, it's required for all rail transit agencies and all large bus agencies, and it incorporates safety management system principles that are designed to mitigate risk and that it's tailored to GCRTA or to your agency. And I go back to that first bullet point that it's flexible and scalable. So as we may increase vehicles in any of the modes of transportation or decrease, we can scale our agency safety plan accordingly. Some of the points within the agency safety plan, the first bullet point highlights the fact that we do have an employee hazard reporting and tracking system. This is critical in our ability to identify hazards and to mitigate hazards and to track them through to the point of mitigation. In our agency safety plan, you'll also notice, and I'll show you in a slide or two here, that we'll have performance targets. Those are as outlined in the requirements at the national level, the National Public Transportation Safety Plan. And our plan also contains methods of safety promotion to communicate and prioritize safety and summarize safety training requirements. Throughout the year, what this flow chart shows you is what we're doing throughout the year before we reach a point of board approval. We start with the top bullet point or box, which highlights the fact that we're at the Labor and Management Safety Committee level, we are monitoring safety performance. The second box, I'm going to go to the right. This is Joint District Safety Committees monitor local performance and provide input on plan updates. They're doing the same thing at district levels. They're monitoring safety performance at the safety committees of the local operating districts. The third box, the Labor and Management Committee creates the PTASP update along with ATU and GCRTA leadership. They agree and sign off on the document. And as you go one box lower, the PTASP update presented to the Audit, Safety Compliance, and Real Estate Committee for Board of Trustee approval. Following that, the Board of Trustees once approved PTAS submitted to ODOT for approval after we have internal board approval. Updated PTASP is implemented by the Executive Safety Committee and District Safety Committees. And then we just restart the process. And so in the photo, what you see is last month in November, as we highlighted in this box where we said the ATU and GCRT leadership agree and sign off. This is commemorating the sign off of the 2026 revision of the PTASP, signed off by Ms. India Birdsong and head of ATU. Just looking at new requirements for the PTASP. So the FTA, it is their requirements, and so they may tweak requirements every so often, as they did in 2025. In 2025, they asked that all the agencies include safety performance targets. And that led to performance measures as listed in the National Safety Plan. And they wanted us, every agency, to have safety performance targets for each mode of transportation that you operate. So for us, we have the rail, we have big bus, and we have paratransit. Our safety performance targets were set using a 3-year rolling average of data. Now this data is not, we're not saying that when we report, we use collisions as an example, we're not reporting every single collision to the NTD database. FTA oversees the National Transit Database, and FTA only wants us to report the worst of the worst. They don't want to hear about mirror collisions. That's not really what they're after, but they do want to hear about pedestrian collisions, severe collisions. And so when you get to just a glimpse at the performance measures, we'll keep this at a higher level, but I'm giving you a glimpse. I think it's on your 2026 revision, maybe about page 16, you'll have this table. And what I've done in the following 3 slides is shown you on the following left that we have a total of 15 performance measures. So the first slide, it's broken into 3 slides. You have the first 6, then 7 through 12, 13 through 15. These are just the performance measures, the titles of them. Go back to the first one. And you can see this is the table published in each version of the agency safety plan. You'll see the 3-year rolling average. So in this example, 22, 23, and 24, statistics for each of the performance measures is shown in the book, our 3-year average. And we have an equation to arrive at our reduction goal. And the reduction goal is either a percentage or an actual. And in the far right column would be the target for the following year. And so, as I said, we won't get into the weeds in all of these, but I think just to explain a little more, like I said, I mentioned that we report the higher level collisions or major events. So the major events would be, for example, bus incidents that would require that we tow the bus from the incident versus a mirror strike, where we would not report it in that major events category. The same with collisions. Collisions is a good example where the FTA wants to know what are your collisions in each mode of transportation, but then as you look at item 4, 5, and 6, they want to break that down a little further. They want to know what your rate is, and then they want to know your pedestrian collision rate. They want to break these statistics out. What is your vehicle collision rate? And so we track this throughout the year. As we said, this Labor and Management Committee and the District Safety Committees, including Executive Safety Committee, all track these statistics throughout the year. I'm going to go to the last slide of the 3 because it shows you items 13 and 14, and if you look in the 3-year averages, you'll see some NAs. And there's a bullet point on the right. We just want to highlight that assault reporting did begin in 23, and a target will be established after 3 years of data are available in NTD. So we haven't yet reached that milestone, so you don't see a target yet. So these are developing statistics for us. But we'll highlight, since we're just about to close out year 2025, so to kind of bring you up to speed, where are we presently? In the category of fatalities, we have 0 fatalities. This is 0 fatalities in bus, rail, or paratransit operations. This is fatalities to either passengers, members of the public, or employees. We're at 0. Employee injuries, right now we're at 20. Again, this would be severe injuries, not, I got a bee sting. These are severe injuries that would have been reported and required more than just general first aid. We have 11 collisions, due to 11 of them due to collision, 5 due to slip and fall, 2 to assault, and there are some others that are pending categorically. We're not sure where they would fall. But 20 is the number so far year to date. Performance targets for 25, continuing on. We have 0, some good numbers in the beginning here. Rail pedestrian collisions, we're riding at 0. Paratransit operations, 0 pedestrian collisions. Big bus, we have 4 bus pedestrian collisions this year. Then derailments, the derailments would fall under the major incidents category of the performance measure, which was item 1. We have 5 derailments. 4 of them resulted from work equipment, like carts, small rail apparatus, equipment that is very light. And we had only 1 of the 5 was the result of a revenue vehicle with passengers on board. In any case, no injuries resulted from any of the derailments. And the damage resulting is minor damage. In other words, maybe a bent throw rod in rail terms. Nothing damaged, in a major way. Secondly, in the PTASP, we've incorporated another FTA requirement, which was to include the right-of-way work protection plan. Our transit agency has had a right-of-way worker protection plan since 1991. So we have a very mature plan. It's been in place for many years. It's been tweaked over the years, as you can imagine. But this has now been incorporated into the PTASP. And so, then the reason being that it's an FTA requirement. So what's new in the FTA requirements in 2026 was we have the regulatory requirement for CFR Part 671, Rail Transit Roadway Worker Protection, which is to incorporate the ROWP into the PTASP. All transit systems must adopt a state safety oversight approved ROWP program by December 2nd was the deadline. And in that, the 2 bullet points here are saying that we have to have our ROWP, our right-of-way worker protection plan, must be 100% compliant with the new FTA Part 671 regulations. Also, within Part 671 is a requirement to have a track access guide. These 2 bullet points have been met. We've been meeting, I think, over the course of the year, 20 meetings. We achieved the goal, updated our plan. We were able to submit our plan to State Safety Oversight October 15th for their review and approval. State Safety Oversight notified us of their approval in November. As you can see, the letter, our trophy on the left there, November 16th, we were approved. Sorry, quick transition here, but one of the requirements of the new Part 671 is that we come to the board as a transit agency. As it reads, GCRTA must provide an annual briefing to you all, to the general manager, chief executive officer, and board of trustees regarding the performance of the right-of-way worker program and any identified deficiencies. So over the course of the year, as you can imagine, the safety department and others, we go out and we audit. We do field audits. And so there were 24 field audits performed this past year. There were 12 deficiencies in four areas. The 4 areas, improper flagging, issues with trip arms, personal protective equipment, and improper work zone. The deficiencies, as they're found in the field, they are corrected on site. They're addressed immediately. When our auditors come back to the office, they'll share the results with the management staff for review with their employees. So it's a good, successful year. Most of what you see in the 4 bullet points there, we'll say are minor, but when you're talking safety, even what might be minor could end up being major. It just depends what happens. So, and our recommendation, the staff requests the Audit, Safety, Compliance, and Real Estate Committee recommend the 2026 Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan to the Board of Trustees for approval. Questions?
Thank you. Questions from the committee?
I have a question,
Sure.
just on that last slide regarding the deficiencies. What is our process for auditing?
So we follow a check sheet for any of the audits that we do, if it were bus or rail. We have a check sheet that we follow, things that direct your eye to look for certain key things. The things I'm referring to would be items that you would find in the right-of-way work protection book.
And how often are we doing those? Maybe that's a better question.
So we don't always audit the same thing. We're not always auditing work zones. So we perform, I don't know how many different types of audits, but we are auditing bus as much as we're auditing rail. The only difference being that rail gets the oversight of ODOT.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting the highlight here of the benefiting from the ODOT component.
Mm-hmm.
So
go ahead.
I don't have a number. It's not a quota. It's not 5. It's not 10. But in the new 6-part 671, one of the requirements is that on a quarterly basis that we report out to ODOT.
Okay.
How many audits and what were your deficiencies? What did you find? So this will be a quarterly report out, and at the end of the year, I will see you again next year.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Comments or questions?
I have a question, Chair. On page 16 in our board package, which is related to the performance measures and targets, there are 18 measures, there are 8 of the 15 measures that require a target less than the corresponding 3-year average. Can you share just a little bit as a new committee member or new trustee, what is the process if we don't meet that new target? Like, is there a mitigation process, or what is the process for the safety committee if we don't meet these targets?
So I'm going to say that upper management meets, director and above level, meets to discuss wherever the deficiency was found to establish a new target. And maybe the target was set too high. Maybe there were extenuating circumstances during the year, but there's a group that discusses and arrives at a final reduction goal and the target. It's not just I would say not just one person, not a DGM, not just one person. It's a group that in each of these cases would get together and work through the goal, establishing the goals.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sure.
Questions? Questions from the board? Mr. Love?
There was just sorry to go take you back to the table you were just on. I think it was the second sheet that had the assault with the NA, but below that was just system reliability rate. Just wanted a clarification on the reduction is a positive for the reliability rate target. I just want to understand that better, what that meant for 15.
So for 15, the system, okay.
How do the numeric numbers work?
Okay. I'm not sure that I have full. Do you know the?
So the question, I don't know, Janet, if you wanted to weigh in or Doc, but I believe the question is pretty simplistic in that if the numbers are going down, is that better or worse? Was the question, right? Okay, got it. So the more reliable the system, the numbers are better or worse?
Yeah, so in this case, the lower number is worse. And so you want the number to go up. This is our identification of major mechanical failures of vehicles.
higher number, the more reliable the system.
Higher is better. Did I say the opposite?
No, you said the right way.
Okay.
It's reverse of what your mind would tell you.
I think you mentioned major mechanical failures, and the other part of that is
Lower.
distance between major mechanical failures.
Yeah, and that depends on, so I think that internally, there's a lot of different ways to look at these numbers, right? Because you could be looking at it by mileage for what you're talking about, Jeff. You could be looking at it by incidents. You could be looking at it, and there's a lot of different ways to look at it, right? You could say, how long does it take you between incidents? How long can you drive? I'll use cars because this is what translates with a lot of folks. How long can you drive your car until it breaks down, right? So that's the same kind of issue that we look at if it's on a bus or a train. And then also, how reliable is the system? How long can you go without a mechanical failure, an incident, that kind of thing that we could potentially avoid due to maintenance and upkeep and that kind of thing. So the higher your rate of incident is, more than likely, the more often you've had to stop on the road because something has gone wrong.
As a follow-up, so the factors that we may be looking at to determine reliability, have we looked at them consistently over the years? So for 2022, 23, 24, we've looked at the same factors for the definition of reliability across the years for each mode. Correct?
Yes. So I'll
Yes,
defer to both of them to answer the. Go ahead, you guys are good. The detail. If you can provide good question. If you could provide the historical nature of the system reliability rate metric and what goes into reviewing that and determining whether we're reliable or not.
All right. I didn't know I was going to be up, so good morning.
Sorry.
Chair Weiss, members of the board, and members of the committee. I'm Flonse Kaver, the Chief Operating Officer here at the Greater Cleveland RTA, and thank you for the questions. So system reliability here, as Kevin described, the identification of these 15 metrics are defined by the National Transit Database. The National Transit Database is a federal database that seeks to try to have common definitions for items across the country so that we can do comparisons across the country. The items that are defined here are major system mechanical failures as defined by the NTD. And so I don't know all of the specifics of it, but it's a standardized way. We also, so we present this information to the feds. We also track what we call miles between service interruptions. That indication is a homegrown definition of what a service interruption is. Broadly, it's when the bus breaks down, but there are some other aspects to it that we have. We track that monthly. We've been tracking that for as long as I've been here, for 20 years or so. And we have a group of people whose job it is to make that indicator go into the positive direction. And so they do several things. We try in our monthly, ops traction meetings, which is our key performance metric meetings for the division. The directors of each of the bus garages and the rail district look at the miles between service interruptions to find trends, to find better ways for us to mechanically fix vehicles in order to make them more reliable. And so this metric, as defined here, is in a specific way for the NTD, but we also have it in a more localized way that we use it to drive our maintenance strategies, we use it to drive our reliability strategies for the customers.
And I assume that also helps drive the reduction goal.
Yes.
Okay.
And so our team is looking at different ways. We have maintenance strategies. We understand which systems are failing, and we come up with processes to try to make those systems not have what we call catastrophic failures, which are failures on the road. Instead, we want to replace them before the systems fail.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? If not, the request then is to, there we are. The recommendation is to pass this on to the full board for approval. Yes. Is there such a motion?
So moved, Sleesman.
Second, Elder.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. We'll pass this on to the board. Thank you very much for a well-conceived description of the plan. I know there's a lot in there, and you summarized it very well. So appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
That's the last item that we have on the agenda. So unless otherwise, we stand adjourned.
To vote. To vote.
It's interesting because not everyone votes to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Elder, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Now I think we stand adjourned.
I have, before we depart, one housekeeping item for the board members. I know Brent had passed out a sheet of paper relative to the board retreat. I've asked for one slight modification, a third item of a date that you're not available. And so in this case, first choice, I put multiple dates down that I am available. I put a